What's up YouTube? Stomp603 here with another reloading video on the 357 SIG. I do have previous videos that were kind of straight and to the point, and I want to do a different video, a little more detailed video on the equipment that I use and the process of reloading 357 SIG. It's one of my favorite cartridges. It's a little tricky and a lot of people have problems with it, so hopefully maybe this will clear up some of that stuff. The two types that I usually use are which you'd buy from the manufacturer, a regular flat point, which are my favorite if you can find them, and then what I also use are these Montana Gold hollow points, which are pretty fun to shoot as well. So in this video we'll go over everything from case prep all the way up to the end, seating the bullet, and a taper crimp at the end. So like I said, I want to do a little bit more detailed on the equipment that I use, and what I'm trying to achieve is a round that is, if not as good as the manufacturer, better, and also consistency is pretty important. So with that, let's get started. I'll set up the tumbler and I'll show you what I use, and we'll go from there. Alright, so my first step is obviously to tumble the brass once you get back from the range. So this is all once fired. I just shot these today. And the reason why I like to tumble them first is obviously you want to get all the residue and stuff and the dirt and the sand and all that off your cartridges before you run it through your sizing die. You don't want to ruin your sizing die by getting scratches and stuff in it, so tumbling it. And I used to use a walnut media, which this here is what I was using, and it worked fine, but it didn't seem to polish the brass quite as much as what I'm using now, which is corn. Corn is it's all pretty cheap, and I just got this big box, obviously, 10 pounds, and with this there is a additive in it, a polishing compound. So after a while, this is all brand new in here, it gets pretty black after a while. You notice when your fingers get black and stuff from handling all the cases when you're reloading. It's just a polishing compound that's put into the corn media here. So obviously just going to put all the cases in here, and then put your top on it. And I know a lot of this stuff people already know, but when I was first starting out, it took a little while to figure out what the best way was to do things. Obviously you start with the cheapest way first, but after a while you want to get stuff that does a better job, and that's where I'm at this point. So I just want to go over some of the I love Lyman products. As you'll see, pretty much everything I have is Lyman. It's really reasonably priced and it's very good quality. I know it didn't used to be back in the day, but they've stepped it up over the years, and they actually have a lot of features on some of their other products that I really like that other manufacturers aren't doing. So obviously Lyman Turbo, or the Pro Tumbler 1200, and it does a very good job. So the first step would be to put all your cases in there, and then you'd want to tumble it. It depends how dirty they are. These were clean just last time, so they ain't gonna have to be in here too long. I generally let them go for at least an hour, maybe 2 hours if I'm watching TV or whatever, and it doesn't hurt the longer you have them in there. So I'll just plug it in so you can see how it works, and then we'll go to the next step. Okay, so I did take the top of it off so you can kind of see how it works. It just keeps mixing everything up so it's nice and polished and all the dirt and everything's all removed. Okay, so once you get your brass all tumbled and everything, it's going to look pretty much like this. All nice and clean. No residue on it or dirt and stuff from the range. There is still carbon on the inside of it. You can see the primers are actually still in it. So the next step that I'm going to do is deprime all my cases. That way I can put them in the ultrasonic cleaner, and it'll clean out the primer pockets as well as the inside of the case. So obviously you need a press. This is the Lyman T-Mag 2, It is a turret press, and I did a review on this, so I'm not going to go over it really in detail, but you can see it's got the turret and you have all your dies in here. Once you have your dies set up, you don't need to fidget with them or mess with them anymore, and it saves a lot of time and aggravation with reloading. Also, everything's very consistent, so it's got a, I'm not going to go into too detail, but it's got different handle position here, left-handed and right-handed. It's got the nice tray to catch the primers. And the other thing, like I was saying, Lyman does these things that a lot of other people ain't doing. It's got this post on the back that you can screw up, and it'll butt against the turret. That way, when you're pressing in your bullets, there won't be any flex in here. There's not too much anyway, but this here ensures that there's no flex at all, and you got a consistent seating of the bullet every single time. So with that, I'll just deprime and size these now. I use the 40 Smith & Wesson carbide sizing die, 357 SIG. It's a bottleneck cartridge. So if you use just a regular steel die, you're going to have to lube all your cases before you run them through the steel die. I do not like to do that step. It adds a lot of time and it's messy, so your alternative is to get the Smith & Wesson 40 cal carbide dies, and what that will do is it'll deprime it like a regular sizing die, and it'll size from the neck down, okay? And you won't need any lube because of the carbide. So that's my first die here in my press. And I'll just run a few of these through. It's really slick with the carbide. Definitely a big difference over the steel dies. So I'll just do 4 of these here real quick. And they actually, when they come out, you can see where the die stops. It's actually like a polished on the case from the carbide being so smooth. You don't get any scratching or galling or anything either. So that's the reason why you need to clean your cases first, so you don't ruin your dies. And so that's it. They're all sized. Got all the primers out of them. And this one here is not too bad inside there, but most of them, they're pretty black inside there. So tumble them all, deprime them all, and size them. And then my third step is the ultrasonic cleaner. So I'll get that set up, and then we'll be right back. Okay, so this is the Lyman ultrasonic cleaner. It's the model TS 2500, and this works awesome. Okay, they say you can do 900 9mm cases in under 10 minutes to clean them. I do mine longer than that because I want them really clean. So it all just depends on how long you want to run it in here. Depends on how clean you want your cases. So it's got a heater and everything. Turn it on, this red light will come on, and it'll heat it up to 150 degrees. Usually takes about a half an hour. I'm not going to do all that right now. So once it's heated up, you're just going to put I'll just use these 4 that I already deprimed. And it's got this nice basket inside here. You fill it up with distilled water, and then you use the concentrated cleaner here. And this is a 15-ounce bottle, 16-ounce bottle. And with this much water, you use around 2.5 ounces. So this will actually go a long way. And there are other things that I haven't tried yet that I saw on YouTube using vinegar, table salt, and other little ingredients that actually supposedly work better than this. So I haven't gotten to that point yet. I still have plenty of this. So water's pretty dirty in here just from doing, of course I already probably ran 1,000 cases through here, like a batch of 100 like 10 times, 10 different batches. So it's all heated up. You just drop them in there. In the basket. You never want them in there against the metal. So, and then you just put your cover on it, and then it goes by seconds. So you got 180 seconds, 280, 380, and 480. Yeah, I usually run mine on 480, and I usually do it 3 or 4 times. So I'll turn this on just so you have an idea of how loud it is. It's not very loud. It's a lot quieter than the tumbler. So let me turn it on. and that's it. Doesn't make very much noise at all. So it's counting down, it'll get to 0, it'll stop. Like I said, I usually do it 4 times. And then what this also does is all that black stuff on the cases from the corn with the compound in it, from tumbling it, it gets rid of all that black residue. You can't see it on the cases, but once you're reloading 20 or 30 cases in, your fingers are black from that compound. That's why the water's dirty in this also, is because it's getting all that compound off, and your brass ends up squeaky clean. So I'll put this away. I actually have a batch that I already ran through here. I'll show you what those look like. So I'll be right back. Okay, so this is a whole batch. I usually do mine in groups of 100. So these are all cases that were actually run through there. And just to give you an idea, let me see if you can see this inside there. I'll get the light on it better for you. But that's how the cases come out of the sonic cleaner. You can see they're brand new looking on the inside. Here's the primer pocket. I mean, they look brand new. Let's see, let me show you one more time here. I don't think you can see it this way, but there you go. Squeaky clean. Primer pockets are cleaned. I mean, that was a pain in the butt, getting all the carbon out of there. So this eliminates that step as well. The sonic cleaner, I paid $111 for it. It's really reasonable if you ask me, especially for what it does. So, all right, so these have all been cleaned. My next step is to size all my cases. The reason why you want them sized on 357 SIG anyway is my last step is a factory crimp, which rolls in the top of the case a little bit. And if they're not all the exact same length, you're going to get a different crimp on each one. You know, it's different sizes. That obviously affects your accuracy and your consistency. So I want all my cases trimmed to .860. That way I know everything's consistent at the very end. So I use the, once again, no surprise, Lyman. This is a universal case trimmer. Okay. And it's got 2 different attachments. This one here, you can hook a drill to it. And then they got the traditional one, a hand crank. So I got this, both together, both arbors. And it also comes with all your pilots here in the back. And this will do from 22 up to 45. So you got 22 caliber, 24, 27, 28, 30, 9 mil I already have in here, 35, 44, and 45. This was a pretty good deal also, price-wise. I mean, a lot of the trimmers didn't even come with the pilots, so you'd have to buy these individually. With all these here, I'll never have to buy any. I don't think I'll ever have any calibers other than what's on here, and I don't think there is any other caliber. So I'll get this set up, and I will show you how I trim my cases. Okay, so I missed a step. It's pretty simple. After they come out of the sonic cleaner, I want to run it through my 357 SIG die, and that is going to size the mouth of the cartridge. Because remember, we only did the 40, which did from the neck down. So you want to size this up, because as you're sizing it, the brass is going to expand. It's going to get longer. Okay, so you run it through your steel die, which will size from the neck up to the mouth, and it'll make the case as long as it's going to be. So after you do that, I mic all mine. It's got a Hornady caliper here, and then I get all the cases that are over 860. So you can see this one here is at 865. Okay, so that's long enough. These 2 here were long enough, and then these 3 here were too short. So I'm going to put those in my bucket of brass that is too short. That way I won't get those mixed up. So once I know they're over 860, this Lyman case trimmer, you can chuck up a case that has a primer in it or without a primer. It does not use the primer pocket as a centering device, so it does not matter if it has a primer in it or not. That's one of the things I like about this one. So this chuck will pretty much take any size bullet. So it's in there, it's centered, and then over here you have, this is another thing I like about Lyman, you got two adjustments here. One of them is your coarse adjustment. You get that pretty close to where you want it at, or this one's the coarse adjustment, and then you use this one here as a fine adjustment. A lot of the case trimmers didn't have these. You're trying to get it adjusted, you're going too far, you back it out, now you're backed out too much, and you go back in, you're in too much. So this here is 2 seconds to set it up and get it right on exactly what you want it. So this is all set up for 860. So I got my case in there. All I'm going to do is just trim it down, and I'll zoom in so you can see that a little better. That's it. Pull that one out, put another one in it. Now these pilots, this is a 9mm one, but after you size it, it doesn't always fit all the way in here where you can leave it in here. So I just use it, I run it in, you know, get my case centered, lock it down, pull out the pilot, and then trim it. Put my pilot back in, and then I do the next one. It's pretty easy, pretty quick, and you can see all those, get this to focus, are all nice and shiny up top where it got trimmed. And these are exactly at 860. So I would run all 100 of mine through this, really quick with the drill on it. And my next step is to deburr the inside and outside of the case mouth, and then take care of the primer pocket as well. So I'll get that set up, and then we'll be right back. Okay, so this is the Lyman Case Prep Express. You know, your fingers get all tired and stuff, cleaning out your primer pockets and, you know, whatever it is you're doing, especially when you're doing 100 at a time. So this here has 5 stations up top, and it's got all these different adapters depending on what you want to do. They just screw in and out of here. So on here I got my outside deburring tool, my inside deburring tool. I got this one here, trims the primer pocket to consistent depths. I had a problem before where my primers, they weren't going in all the way, and that would throw off your measurements of your overall length at the end. So since using this, it's taking care of that problem. You want your primer typically, you know, 1/1000th inside the bottom of the case here. Okay, you don't want it really flat, you want it seated in a little bit. This here removes the military crimp, if you have cases that have military crimps on them. And then this one here will make all your flash holes consistent. It's like a little drill bit. Some of them, you notice they ain't circle. They're kind of, it's weird. They got like cracks in them, and that'll make them all perfectly circle. And again, it's all about consistency. So I'll turn this on real quick, and I'll just show you how quick it is to do these 2 cases that I trimmed earlier. It's not very loud. So you're just gonna do the outside. Next one over here. Do the inside. And run it over here. That'll get the primer pocket all the way to a consistent depth. If it's got a military crimp on it, you run it over this other one. And then this last one here will essentially bore out the flash hole there. So there you go. You ain't gonna be able to really see it, but I'll zoom in on the next one and show you. Okay, so here's a close-up of the case prep. So deburr the outside, deburr the inside. and then do my primer pocket. That'll cut it to a consistent depth, and then this one here will remove a factory crimp if there's any on there. And since I've started using this one, my primers, they seem to go in a lot easier. Every now and then you get one that's really hard. And then the final one is doing the flash hole. So you just cut through. So this is only going to go down so far because it's got, you set it up with this here. You set it up to your depth. And it's only going to let it go down so far. You can actually see the brass that it took off. Took out of the flash hole. So it's nice and clean in there. Flash hole is a nice consistent circle. Primer pockets, nice consistent depth. You see how nice and clean it is in there also. And my next step will be to expand these cases. Okay, next step is expanding the case mouth. And the reason why you're going to do that is so the bullet is easier. It goes in there easier without crushing your case, which will happen if you don't expand it. Then if you don't notice you crush it, you're going to have feeding issues and stuff. So my next die is out of the 357 SIG, the Lee die kit, and it is just going to flare the case mouth. It's going to flare it out a little bit like a funnel. That's what's inside here is a wedge. The more you got this adjusted, the more of a flare is going to be put on it. The less you flare it. So it's pretty important on the 357 SIG not to flare it too much, because this is a bottleneck cartridge, like I said before. At this point in here is all that is contacting the bullet. If you flare this out too much, then your bullet's going to fit in there loosely. Okay, so you want as much neck tension as possible on your bullet, given this little area here. So you don't want to flare it too much. So with that, like I already went over before, the different bullets I use. This is a Hornady 124 grain flat nose full metal jacket, and then this other one is the Montana Gold 124 grain hollow point full metal jacket. 357 SIG bullet selection is very important. Obviously, it is a 9mm bullet, but it's not a regular 9mm bullet. These are the ones that I got at first. And these are Sierra 125 grain full metal jackets, and they're round, just regular round bullets. And the reason why these are not good is it's easier to show you on this Montana Gold one. You can see it's got a real flat edge here, quite a ways up the bullet. Okay, so like I said, there's not very much neck on this cartridge. So you want a nice flat bullet that when you seat it in there, it's going to be along the whole neck is going to be contacting the side of that bullet. These 9mm bullets, they start rounding in pretty quickly. So what I was noticing is, as I was putting these into the proper depth, there was actually you could see the top of the case mouth wasn't even touching the edge of the bullet because it rounds in. Okay, so not every 9mm bullet is going to work for 357 SIG. And I got a couple of those, and I got a whole bag of these. So these are good for regular 9mm, but they're not going to work on 357 SIG. They make bullets specifically for 357 SIG, and then you can get these ones as well. If you take a real close look at that, if it'll focus, you can actually see, you can still see the flat part of the bullet. It's not quite all the way inside the case mouth, okay, before it starts to curve in. And the same thing on the flat nose bullets. You can see that edge. Come on, focus. You can see the edge is not where it starts to curve in. It's not all the way. Damn it. I want to show you this because it's pretty important. It's not going to focus. You can kind of see it there. When I'm looking at this bullet, I can see where it starts to taper in, and that's actually above the case mouth. Okay, so bullet selection is pretty important. So once you expand it, in your expanding die here, I already did it, you're just going to want to, so your bullet will sit in there and not fall off. It doesn't have to go in very far, it doesn't have to be in there tight, but between the expanding and the inside deburring tool, it's got a nice little flare out where the bullet will go in pretty easily, and it's not over expanded. Okay, so my next step is to put a primer in it, and for that I used the Lee priming hand primer tool, and this has been redesigned. This is the new style, and just a regular hand primer. Not really. Don't need to explain it too much. Just put that in there. And there you go. Primed. Now with this, when I bought this, because I got the Lee die sets, I assumed that those shell holders for the press would actually work inside here, but it doesn't. It's the same. The upper half of the shell holder is the same. It just doesn't have the. Oops. It doesn't have this bottom part on the shell, right here. It's basically this part here, the top part, but it's flat, so it sits down inside there. So if you go and order this one, make sure you get the shell holder, the hand priming shell holder that you need for it. Other than that, it works great. So once I got my primer all in there, obviously we're going to charge the case, and then I'll get that set up, and then we'll do that. Okay, so measuring powder, obviously you need a scale. This is the Lyman scale, and I tried to cheap out, and I got a different one. It was a digit-weight scale, and it didn't even do to the 1/10 of a grain, so it was pretty useless as far as reloading. Obviously your loads are 7, 7.1, 7.2, 7.3, so you want obviously the tenths, and this one was the most accurate from doing the research online, down to a 1/10 of a grain. So it comes with AC power, and also you can put AA batteries in it if you want to take it to the range. So it's all touch screen. Turn it on. Obviously you want to first make sure it's all zeroed out from bumping it around and stuff. Even though it says 0 doesn't mean it's zeroed or calibrated. So on this one here, I'm just going to hold down on the screen, let those number 0 will flash there, and then 100 grains will flash, or grams. So once that starts flashing, it comes with a 100 gram weight. Just stick that on the scale, wait till it stops blinking, and then you know you're calibrated. And then I went back to grams, or grains. So 100 grams, 1543 grains. So it's going to say 0. A lot of them you have to buy a tray. This one came with the tray. Again, I like the way Lyman does things, and it's really reasonably priced. So that's how much my tray weighs. Obviously I'm going to hit 0, and now I can measure powder. So I'm just going to dump a charge into here. And that's 6.5 grains of unique. I usually use accurate number 9 when doing 357 SIG. It is my favorite powder. Cannot get it right now. I got a little bit left in here, but I have yet to find. This was $29 at a local store. I've seen it online, Gun Broker, 2 1-pound jugs, which would have cost me $60. On Gun Broker, they want $130, so it's ridiculous. I'm just waiting for them to get more in stock. So I'm using Unique right now. 6.5 grains. Well, actually, we'll put 7 grains. So I'm just going to trickle a little bit more into here. about 7 grains. Just dump that back in there. And then I'm just going to dump this in the case because I know it's 7 grains, and I'll show you how the powder measurer I got. So I'm just going to use the funnel here and put that in there. And I know there's 7 grains of unique inside this case. Now the reason why I like accurate number 9 is it uses more. You can use up to 13 grains of accurate number 9. It was 11.7 to 13 grains. I was using right around 12.6 grains, and it fills the case quite a ways up. And then when you press your bullet in, it's called a compressed load. It's going to pack that powder in there, and what that's going to help with is bullet setback. That's a typical problem with 357 SIG because people ain't getting enough neck tension around here. You got 14 rounds in your clip, and you're firing. The jarring and the force of the weapon is actually moving the bullet inside the case, making it go in. Okay, because like if I was to use unique here, it's not filling the case all the way. That's another reason why I like the accurate number 9 is because it helps. It's a compressed load. It helps with bullet setback. And I used unique today at the range. I shot 100 of them, and it just does not have the velocity and the pop of the accurate number 9. So it works, and it's as advertised. So I just prefer the accurate number 9. So let me get set up, and I'll show you the powder measurer. Okay, so we got the Lyman powder measurer number 55, and it's very well built, very good quality. It's got this nice finish on it, and this is I got the desktop mount here. It doesn't come with it; you have to buy it separately. It does give you the option. It comes with 2 of these adapters, which you can thread into your expanding die, and then put your powder measurer right on top of it. So once you expand your cartridge on the press, you can dump your charge right through that die and charge your case. I don't do it that way. It's pretty much for progressive reloaders. So the adjustments here, I'll zoom in on that so you can see how that works. So it's got this barrel assembly here, and you would undo your lock screw, and you'd move that in and out and get it close to where you want it. So if I'm doing 7 grains of unique, I'd get it around 8 grains and then lock it down. And then you got this these 2 pieces of brass here. When you move this bigger handle, both pieces will move in and out, so you get that a little bit closer to 7 grains, and then you lock that down. And then this other little handle up top moves this top piece of brass in and out, which gives you a fine adjustment, and then it'll get you right into where you need to be. So 7 grains, you'd lock that down, and then you're all set. So once you got it all set up, you just dump your load, put it on your scale, make sure you're at where you need to be. I'll zoom out here. So like I said, just dump your load, measure it, put it in your case. Very accurate, very consistent. So after you measured, you take your tray, and then you just put it right up under there. I'm not going to dump any charges here. Just make sure it's, I'd measure it, and then I'd do 10 of them. On the 11th one, I'd put it in my tray, remeasure it, make sure I'm still at 7 grains, do my next 10, so on and so forth, until I get them all done. Very well built. It's got this little tumbler thing here that packs down all your powder as well. And like I said, it comes with 2 of these adapters, depending on which size cases you use, big or small. And then it threads into your expanding die, like I was talking about also. So there you have it, the Lyman powder measurer. Very accurate, and I love it. So we'll get on to our next step. Okay, so I got my case all filled with 7 grains of unique. I got my primer in it. Everything's been size trimmed. So my next step is I'm going to seat the bullet. Now, once you get these all set up, you usually don't have to fidget with them, but the one that I always do pay attention to is the bullet seating one, obviously. You want to make sure you're getting these all an overall length, a consistent overall length. So 357 SIG, depends on what type of bullet you're using and all that. It's between 1.395 and 1.140 is typically, the overall length you want, but I've seen them 5 thousandths lower than that, so 1.135. So I do anywhere in between 135 and 140, just as long as they're all consistent overall lengths. That's what I go with. So back this out quite a ways, just so it starts to go in there. Okay. I know that's way too long of an overall length, so obviously want to get your micrometer out and check your overall lengths. So right now I'm at 1.167. Okay, so we're going to go in a little bit, press it a little more, double check my length. 1.160. Go in a little more, double check it. I'm at 1.152. A little bit more. 1.1444. Here more. 1.140. If you can see that or not. Okay, so that's perfect. I would run, 2 or 3 through there, double checking every single one of them, and then once I got it where I want it, I'll just run all 50 through it, or if I'm doing 100, I'll do 100. So that's seating the bullet. My final step is to do the factory crimp, and this is a Redding die, factory taper crimp. And right now, from that, when we expanded the case, I can feel it's got a sharp edge up there, okay, which means it's flared out just a little bit from expanding. So when we run it through this die, this one you got to set up also, and it's already set up for 860, so I can just feel a little bit of resistance when I put it in there. And now this whole upper mouth of the case, there is no more sharp edge. It's nice and flat. You do not want to over crimp your final step. I've messed around with it just to see what happens and everything, and then when I over crimped, which is going to roll that mouth in quite a bit, to the point where once you pulled the bullet out, you could see it was just jammed right into the bullet. You lose neck tension. Okay, before I pulled the bullet out, over crimping it, before I pulled the bullet out, I could take the bullet and actually spin it inside the case. Okay, I couldn't pull it out or anything because it was crimped in there, but there was so little neck tension, I could take the bullet and just spin it. Okay, so just enough crimp to get rid of that edge up top. Okay, from sizing and everything, you got enough neck tension and everything. So people think that more of a crimp means more neck tension, and that is totally opposite. So you want to get these all set up to where there's just enough of a crimp so you don't feel that edge anymore. Okay, a lot of people don't even use this as a last step. I like to use it. So there you have it. That's it. We cleaned the case in the corn with the compound in there, and then we ran it through the 40 Smith & Wesson. I wanted to be more detailed in this one, so I'll show you the kit that I got. This is the Lee carbide reloading dies for the 40 Smith & Wesson. Part number is 90799. Okay, and it comes with the 3 dies: the powder through expanding die, the carbide sizing die, and the bullet seat and feed die. Okay, I just got this for the sizing die. I have the SIG P250, so I will have the 40 exchange kit eventually, where I can reload all the 40. So this isn't a waste of money. You can buy that carbide sizing die just by itself if you're trying to save yourself some money. Okay, so that was the first die that I use, and it's got the carbide insert. And this is the other case, the kit that I have is the 357 SIG, and this is the steel die set, part number 90270, okay? And it comes with your powder through expanding die, which we used, the steel sizing die, which we also used, and the bullet seat and feed die, which we also used, okay? And then the redding die. This other one is an RCBS bullet seating die, and I usually use that one for the hollow points. So we sized with the 40 Smith & Wesson. We ran it through the ultrasonic cleaner to clean up the primer pockets and get the cases and the carbon all out of the inside of it. And then we ran it through the 357 STIG sizing die to size the neck and the shoulder and everything. And then we trimmed our cases all to 860. Then we deburred the inside and outside. We made sure all our primer pockets were consistent depth using the Case Prep Express. And then we removed the military crimp if there was one. We uniformly sized the flash hole. And then we expanded the case and mouth with the 357 SIG expanding die. We put in 7 grains of unique smokeless powder. And then we seated the bullet to 1.140. And then we did a taper crimp on it with the redding die. And there you have it. 357 SIG, flat nose, 124 grain, jacketed hollow point. I'm getting right at about 1,300 feet per second with this, with the accurate number 9, not the unique. Okay, when I do my 12.6 grains of accurate number 9, and out of string or 10 shots within a string, I'm getting about 16 feet per second difference. So that is pretty accurate. If you ask me, when I was doing the unique today, I was getting over 100 feet per second difference, between velocities within 10 shots, which I really wasn't happy with. So there you have it, 357 SIG. That's the equipment that I use. I hope this video has helped, and if you like it, please subscribe. Thank you very much.